All right. Lyle, thank you for joining us today. This is Lyle Iron Mocassin, and I'm going to let him introduce himself, but we are going to be interviewing him today as he is a Native American veteran of Minnesota, right? Is that where you enlisted, Lyle?
Yes.
Okay, great. So yeah, if you just want to maybe start off by kind of telling us what led you into joining the military.
That was primarily done by family. I would say that offhand, I would have like to date maybe 20, 25 members of my family are military. So it's a large number, it's a large percentage. And it was just a kind of a following in the footsteps of my father, grandfather, great-grandfather, aunts, uncles. My father was in the military intelligence during Second World War. He was part of the OSS. Familiar with the OSS?
No.
Office of Strategic Services.
Okay.
They did the military intelligence and did international espionage for the government of the United States during the Second World War. In 1949, they reorganized it and restructured it. Prior to 1949, it was run by the Army, the United States Army, and then in 1949, the United States Navy took it over, and they changed the name from Office of Strategic Services to the Central Intelligence Agency. So there's, yeah. And so in my father being part of that structure, he had what was classified as a top secret clearance. So he was able to get his background done all the way back until the 1840s or 1850s. They were able to follow him down through reservation documents, different types of documentation from the different government agencies. Our family's been involved with the government in a variety of different situations throughout this entire time. So when I turned 17, my father had passed away when I was 14. So it was kind of a thing where as soon as I was eligible, I was going to be going into the military. When I turned 17, I was still in high school. And so I joined the Naval Reserve here in Minneapolis. And that took me from the Naval Reserve here in Minneapolis. Then we moved to, our family moved to New York City. And there I qualified for a specialized training program because of my family's background. And I was given the opportunity to go through 3 months of training at Floyd Bennett Airfield in Long Island, and then another 3 months of training further on with the Office of Naval Intelligence. So and this was done while I was still in high school. So when I finished high school, I got promoted, went active duty, and that's where my career started, was in 1967. And I'm not sure if that's that reason for me to, is that the question answered? Is that good?
Yeah, that was great. No, thank you for sharing that. So long line of military experience in your family, and that was just kind of something that did you have any, like, had you accepted that? Did you want to do anything different, or it was just, it was?
Well, the thing is that when you have you have that kind of familiarity with the military, you know the advantages of it, the educational advantages, the work experiences you get, the disciplines and the responsibilities you gain by participating in the military, whether it's, doesn't matter which branch it is, they all have their own what you call environment or decor, where you have the Marine Corps is known for its toughness, the Air Force known for its intellect, the Army's known for its grunts, and the Navy's known for its technical and training aspects. So each branch of the military has its own little niche that they work out of. So, and the reason I joined the Navy was simply because I wanted to leave Minnesota. You stayed in the Army, you stick around, stay in the Corps, you stuck around. I'm not sure. The Air Force was never really something I considered. So, but I wanted to do a lot of traveling, check it out, see what it was like. So I joined the Naval Air Force at the time and did a whole lot of traveling. So, and I'll go into that as probably as the questions go on further. Next question.
Thank you. Yeah, for sharing. So you talked a little bit, well, I guess okay, so you joined the Navy and you told us why you joined the Navy. So then can you talk a little bit about what that looked like? Like what were your tasks? What were your kind of the training that led up to it? What did all that look like?
During the process of going, because there's a time where you are what you classify as a reservist. So that's not a full-time job. It's a part-time activity until you've reached a certain stage where you go on to what is classified as active duty. And that's a term used when you are a full-time contracted employee of the government of the United States, regardless of which branch it is. And so I had had the opportunity to go through a number of what they classify as rank training. So I went from an E1 to an E4, which is 4 ranks up by the time I got to the ability to become active duty, go on active duty. And so when you do that, you don't have to go through a number of the incidences or activities that are associated with being involved in E1, 2, and 3 pay grades. You know, that's where you do a lot of menial type cleaning jobs, sanitation jobs, culinary type activities. You're assigned to, you know, to do cleanup in the mess halls and stuff like that. It's just part of your training process. So I was able to eliminate all that, but not completely. There was some times where when we're going through our first 3 months of training where we were in classified as boot camp for 3 months. And then you go through the usual stuff of being harassed and just about driven insane by the drill instructors. So, but that was just, you know, this is, you know, going back to 1966 when I first went in. So 67 is when I went on active duty. And when I was placed on active duty, I was assigned to a VP squadron, a patrol squadron. And my classification at the time was aviation ordnanceman. In order to be classified as an aviation ordnanceman, you had to have a top secret clearance. And I was able to get a top secret clearance because my father had a top secret clearance. So I was grandfathered into the system. And after a few months in the squadron, I was given the opportunity to go through some specialized training, which was nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare specialist. So this was an opportunity that I took advantage of. And in doing that training and finishing that training, I was also afforded the opportunity to go through Navy SEAL training, which again afforded me the opportunity to be involved in a lot of clandestine behind the scenes activities that the military had. So that was always a part of the specialized training you go through. It's nothing like it is today. I mean, the SEALs of today are considerably much more efficient and more technical than what we were back in the 60s. We were basically, taught to be part of and infiltrate environments where we just blended in. That's why I was very successful, because my complexion and my demeanor was not that of a normal American. So I was able to travel and intertwine into a number of different environments, the Asian environment, the Eastern European environment. So And my main job was to facilitate, transfer, and process documentations that had to deal with nuclear, biological, and chemical warfare stuff. It was basically, I was a courier. I would bring in and out of different areas, different documentations to help facilitate the transfer and training of individuals who were involved in these different, NBC activities. And they needed someone who could, function within that realm and still be able to, in case anything did happen, be able to demonstrate the ability to thwart off any kinds of threats or any kind of activities. That's why the SEAL training was part of the whole part of the trainings. And that was, that type of training was extremely grueling. The most of it was done in water, and being in Minnesota most of my life, I was a AAA swimmer, so the water thing was relatively much easier for me than most of the people that went through the training. But it was a difficult environment up to the point where you were given certain tasks and jobs and things to do, and you had to make sure you did them at what they classified as a 1%er. You had to be within the 1% category in order to get qualified with all this stuff. So it was enduring, to say the least. And then when after I'd been assigned to the VP squadron, that's because I was assigned to the VP squadron because the squadron would travel all over the world. The squadron I was assigned to was given the award of the Navy E, and it was the first squadron to receive the latest model of anti-submarine warfare aircraft, which was the P-3 Orion. And that aircraft was like the top of the line high-tech system that was coming out back in 1964. So the squadron was assigned to go around the world to different countries and different areas to show off the aircraft and to show off its capabilities. And that basically gave me the cover to go and do what I needed to do for the military intelligence people, Office of Naval Intelligence, to transfer and carry out these different documents that we were going on. So, everything that in the military has got a, bit of a clandestine activity to it. It's like they keep this under wraps pretty much. I'm currently under, the rules and regulations of the, what they call it, United States Military Secrets Act. So I can't give you details as far as dates and names and stuff like that. I don't remember them anyway, so it doesn't really matter. So, so this is basically what I was doing in my time in the military, which is not considered the average routine for any military person, let alone a Native person. So my thinking is that it would be probably a good idea to talk to one of the, Army guys or Navy guys that was in the regular Navy or regular Army part to get their views on it. There was little or no discrimination within my ranks. I worked with a number of different individuals, everything from, gay Navy guys to really off-the-wall military officers. The issue around discrimination was very minimal at this place, but there was a number of other areas where I went into area in Puerto Rico called Roosevelt Roads to do some advanced training, underwater training, and there was a race riot going on when I arrived. The race riot was going on between the Marines, the white Marines and the black Marines at this naval station, and they were literally rioting. I mean, and people understand that when you got military people rioting, they got guns and they know how to use them. So, it's always it was a thing where we landed the aircraft, and next thing we knew, we were completely surrounded by what they call shore patrol or police, and we were all escorted off the aircraft and taken by armored personnel carrier to our quarters. And the aircraft was secured because the aircraft had high security equipment on it. So it was one of those kind of things. So we were just driving along, you could see everybody shooting at each other and kinds of things. It was like, it was like being in Saigon at the time. So that's what I started off on, and I did that for about a year and a half, almost 2 years. And then I was assigned to the SINCPAC, this naval sections of the Pacific, and that's where I worked in with the different military intelligence groups, Australians, French, Germans, Japanese, and we would be handling different kinds of documents that would assist the support of the activities in Vietnam. So that means I'd be going in and out of a variety of different bases in South Vietnam and working with that. And I spent like 8 months there. I got wounded, and that pretty much ended my military career because I got wounded in the leg, so I could no longer function in the capacity of a Navy SEAL. So I was released from the military from active duty, and that was in February of 1968. So when I got released from active duty, and that's when I went to New York and got out of the military there and joined the police department there. So, anything else? Is that going right way?
Oh, absolutely.
Am I
Just
blabbing
love
on
to
too
hear
much?
your conversation.
Oh, yeah. So, some of the stuff that people talk about with us as far as Native people, as far as, why do we do this? What do we get involved in this for? I mean, I have a family history of it. Most Native veterans have a family history. That's pretty much how they go into it. But historically, it was one of the few places where Native people could go into, because at the time, you didn't need a high school diploma to get into the military like you do now. And so you could go into the military no matter what your grade level was, as long as you could read and write. And you could get trained in a variety of different areas and have a paycheck, have a place to live, which was pretty important to a lot of people. When I was doing when I worked for the state veterans employment people, we did some studies and we found that 11% of the Native population were in the military in 2015. So we had to have had the highest cultural participation of any culture in the United States in the military. And, sometimes on occasion we've been asked, why would you do that to a country? Why would you help a country that's treated you so badly? And it's very simply because this is our country. It's ours, it has been, and we're going to be here to protect it. And that's the whole gist of it, is that we are here doing this to help protect our people. And in the process, if we're helping other people, that's fine and dandy. But, one of the things that kept the Native culture alive and well during both the Second World War and First World War was the fact that military people, Native military people, were keeping the culture alive and making it known throughout the different parts of the country and different parts of the continents and also the world that we existed. This is something that people don't realize, that the European nations had a fixation with Native cultures. I spent some time in Europe, a great deal of time in Europe. And when I was back there back in the 1980s with my employer, I found that a number of European countries have Native clubs that they follow Native cultures with. And when I started working here at American Union OIC, I connected with some of the people from the, what do they call those folks that work overseas in the government? They handle
Contractors?
No, they're the the folks that handle the embassies and do all that kind of stuff. They work at the embassies and at the State Department. and the State Department had my name given to them from other stuff I'd done with the government, and they sent some folks here from Germany and France. They want to get a tour of Minneapolis and see the native culture here. And both the groups from Germany and France were all members of a club that followed Native American people. And this year, that particular year, they were going around to the metropolitan areas in the United States and visiting with the Native people. The following year, they were going to go to the reservations and visit. I mean, it's kind of weird that, we actually have clubs that follow Indian people, so I thought it was kind of unique that they did that. And given the history that we have with Western civilization, that they actually are looking at us in a totally different light than what we're having the understanding of. So pretty cool, but I spent that time in the military, and that gave me, a very clear understanding of what responsibility is, respect, dignity. You'll find that, military people have a completely different viewpoint of how things are viewed. And when you see military people who are out there, doing different kinds of activities and participating in certain events, it's a very small part of these individuals who do participate in the anti-government, the anti-war thing, the anti-military stuff. Very, very few of these individuals are ex-military. Anybody who's been in the military are the first ones to say and do anything they can to prevent from going into a hostile or environment where there's going to be lives taken and shots fired. So military people are the last ones who will be the proponents of any kind of activity, any kind of war kind of things. So people are misunderstanding a lot of the things about the military. And it also preps you for the world outside. Gives you a very good understanding how human nature, behavior of human nature is, and the difference between good, bad, and evil. So a lot of gray areas in there. So how's that?
That's great.
Next question.
You mentioned you worked in the police department, right? So what was your, did you make it a career? Did you serve?
Yeah. I started, I left the active, I left Southeast Asia in December of 1967. And then I was in Saigon in December of 67. February of 68, I was in the Brooklyn Navy Yards. And this is where we were being released from active duty. And, had a few thousand of us, like 10 or 12,000 military people being released at that one particular time and location. And there was a variety of different municipalities there. If you look back at the history of how governments operate, how municipalities operate, the end of the Second World War, 1946, 47, 48, was a high influx of individuals into the municipalities. And so they had these increase in employment. So with the police departments, fire departments, the administrations of different types of municipalities. So in 1966, 67, 68, these gentlemen were retiring after their 20 years. So they were losing a lot of their individuals. So they were at a point where they were going out and seeking individuals to, be hired in these different departments. And the first line of, area was the law enforcement or police officers. Second was fire, and then sanitation and administration. So there was like 15 different municipalities at the Brooklyn Navy Yards hiring people on the spot for these different jobs. And becoming a police officer had some, had a lot of, what you want to call it, kind of like, oh, wow, this sounds like it could be fun, And so there was a number of us would go through that whole process. And we were given the opportunity to be hired on the spot. They would give you a questionnaire, 50 questionnaires, and if you answered them correctly, they would put you in a line and say, "Here, go." And so during February, we did that. I was sworn in as a police officer on March 14th, 1968. And I was sworn in with 500 individuals who were going into the New York City Police Academy at that time. And you go through 6 months of some pretty serious trainings with the police department as far as regulations, policies, things of that sort, physical trainings with weapons and things of that sort. At the end of the 6 months, there was only 80 some of us left. All of them either got disqualified, guys were wanted, some people were just nuts, so we had a graduation of 85 individuals from the police academy, and then I was assigned to a precinct in an area called Harlem. Are you familiar with Harlem?
Yes. Mm-hmm.
Yeah, and that's where I started my rookie time as a police officer. Spent a couple of years as a police in uniform. Went to plain clothes for a couple of years, got promoted to sergeant, went into the detective bureau for 3 or 4 years, got put back into uniform when you get promoted. And then I worked my way back into the detective bureau. And got promoted to lieutenant, went back to uniform. And that's when oh yeah, I forgot. Back in 77, when I'd been a cop for about 9 years. I got shot in the stomach, and that kind of put a crinkling in things. That's when I started getting involved in other activities, because I was on light duty and sick duty for almost 2 years. So that's when I connected with some neighbors of mine and started doing work with leather in different aspects. Because I always, as a child, I worked with leather. Our family had a souvenir business, so we made different kinds of. I did the leather work. Some members of my brothers and sisters, we learned how to work with birch bark. We'd make little baskets and teepees and canoes and stuff like that. We would sell them at we would be doing the powwow highways back in the 50s, and we'd have these concession stands we'd take along to help support ourselves during the summers with the powwow highway. And I was doing the leather work, so I'm always involved in that. In high school in Brooklyn, when I moved to Brooklyn, I learned how to cobbler training, which is shoemaking. So I learned how to make shoes when I was in high school, working with my hands and stuff like that. So when I got shot as a police officer, I started taking that line of work back up again, and started working with a gentleman who had a leather store on the Manhattan's West Side, and we got along pretty well. I ended up becoming a partner in the store, and like I said, like a year and a half later, I was able to get back into uniform and work back in the streets again, and stayed there until I was 46 and 44, 46. And I retired in 1991, came back to Minnesota. And, when you live in a city like New York City, it's a kind of considerably more diverse than most places are. When I moved back here in 1991, my mother got sick, so I came back to help her out. And boy, was I surprised to see that Minnesota was not exactly what I expected. So, given the behavior of individuals, with the issues around disparities and racial discrimination, I was very taken back by how in depth and how over the top obvious it was here in Minnesota. But that's a story for another day. So that's my most of my military, some of my law enforcement background. My older brother, Lyle, he was the captain of the police department in Pine Ridge when the AIM people took it over, American Indian Movement took it over. So it was kind of thing. And, my family was in military and law enforcement. Half of it was in military and law enforcement. The other half were, like rest of us had some issues here and there. So, but I had I considered myself having a pretty good life. And so when I came back here in 91, I decided to get involved in the nonprofit area and take my life experiences and lived experiences and put them to some kind of good for the Native community. And I've been doing this work ever since, working in nonprofit, working in an environment to assist other Native people and our culture and overcoming these obstacles that have been placed on us. So I'm going to have to take this. So good afternoon, Lyle speaking. How may I help you? Yeah, Rich, I got to call you back, okay? Yeah, okay. I'm doing a Zoom meeting right now, but we we have to talk. Yeah, okay, bye. I got this thing going where I'm trying to develop a sweat. I have a friend of mine has some property up 30 miles north of here, and he wants to offer the land up for sweats. But I got to get a group of guys together to have him explain to him what it involves. A lot of people don't understand about how sweats operate, so he can get firsthand. He doesn't know what he's getting involved in when he offers us his land for sweats. So that was Rich Antel, and he works over at the American Indian Family Center, and he does sweats. So, but how are we doing? Is this communication? Is it good, or is it okay, or how is this?
Yeah.
Oh.
No, you're doing great. Just sharing your experiences and your story is absolutely what we wanted to hear and just kind of learn from it. Absolutely. I think the one thing I would ask, and just maybe kind of a wrap up, is I know you've kind of talked about being Native like here and there, but can you maybe elaborate on how either that did or didn't affect decisions, being in the military, being a cop, kind of that aspect of it?
Well, the thing is, when you're a Native person and people know you are, I got through. I got harassed like everything. My name is Iron Mocassin, but they called me Tin Booties, and I really hated that. Because they said, they assumed the term moccasin was said something to do with footwear. They didn't realize it has to do with the snake. So there would be those things like that. People would be referring to me as Officer Tin Booties instead of Officer Iron Mocassin. So, and then that was, minor things, no big deal in the military. There's always somebody around that, there's always those type of individuals who think that, they can make fun of or ridicule the indigenous cultures. Going through different parts of trainings and stuff, people would be expecting me to, to be able to do certain things. One of the things that when I first became a police officer, we'd have these outings, and some of the people in the police department knew who I was, and they knew what I did in the military. So when we have these outings, we'd have these things that they'd make sure that I was on their side. If they're going to go into the woods, or they're going to be going into any kind of environment where somebody with specialized training is going to help. I was one of the first ones always picked by certain groups of individuals, and that group of individuals that I to date are still friends, and we still hang out together. There's like 8 of us that I communicate with. I just got through talking to one of them over the weekend, and it's a kind of a unique environment because they all know that I'm not a conservative, and I'm not a person who supports a lot of the activities and things that the government supplies or the government participates in, but they do. They're outright right-wing individuals, but we get along and we communicate and we respect each other for that. And that is something that's unique about the relationships you gain when you're in the military and the relationships you gain when you're in law enforcement. If you work for an environment where people respect that, you'll find that you have a much nicer and more enjoyable lifestyle than trying to always get over on people, always trying to do things that are not considered ethical or moral. So, and I was lucky to get a hookup with a bunch of really good guys who respected my past and respected my culture, and I did the same thing with them. We had out of 8 guys, it was 2 blacks, 5 whites, and 1 Indian. And intermittently, we saw some Latin gentlemen come through our group. But when I say the 8 of us, 2 have passed away. Those 2 passed away at 9/11. They were working the World Trade Center when they had retired and became federal police officers, and they worked at World Trade Center. So they died at 9/11. So
That's sad.
what's next?
Well, I was just going to mention too, and that was going to be one of my questions is I had, like you had family in the military. And I always just remember one of my brothers indicating, every chance he could, he would just meet up with his buddies and make sure they had that connection and kept that connection. That way he could see them, visit with their families, and just continue that relationship. So that was going to be one of my things to ask you is if you still kept in contact. So, and
Yeah,
you
I
do.
kept in contact with a number of the guys I was in the squadron with, but you had to understand that these people didn't know what I did. They were not. They thought I was just a regular old, aviation ordnanceman, and that I would be running around doing all this stuff for the administration of the squadron. But they did not know that I was working for military intelligence. They did not know that I was part of the trained individuals to work in this environment. The squadron itself, the squadron commanding officer was the only one that knew who I was. No one in the squadron knew that I did this. So whenever we'd go to any kind of base, like we would hit at one of the bases in France or one of the bases in Italy, I would be classified and put into what they call temporary assigned duty, TAD, and I'd be assigned to the local liaison office with the squadron, and that's where I would be gone to assigned, so they would not realize that I was participating in these activities. So it wasn't until after I got out of the military, started hanging out with some of the guys I knew from the squadron, when I explained to them what I did, and we got to be really good friends. I mean, one guy's Bill Cook, we called him Cookie. His oldest son is named after me. Then there was Silverman and Rosenthal, and a couple of these guys that I got to know quite well. Our families, and godfather to one of their kids. A couple of kids are named after me. So we got to be, it turned out to be pretty good. Unfortunately, Cookie died young from cancer. Ray Silver died in a car accident. Rosenthal, I think he just passed like 4 or 5 years ago. So the guys I made good friends with in the military have all passed on. I was fortunate enough that when I worked for the state of Minnesota Department of Employment, I worked as a veterans representative, and I got to know a lot more vets that way. And I still keep in contact with them. I still volunteer with the veterans groups. It's, once you're, in the military, it's either, you're in it wholeheartedly 100%, or you just, some of the guys who have been involved in a lot of different kinds of activities when you're involved in a pretty intense war environment, Vietnam, Iraq, Afghanistan. Once you get out of the military, you really don't want to have much to do with that whole environment. It's not a difficult thing to walk in and still have a mindset that you're going to stay positive. So, some of us can handle it, some of us can't, some of us do quite well, some of us don't. The intensity of being involved in a combat environment has its effects. So, yeah.
Thank you.
You're welcome.
So I think, Lyle, I just want to say thank you again for being with us today and sharing your story and your experiences. The thing I would like to leave off with is, do you have any advice for youth, or I guess just anyone in general as far as the military is concerned, if you have words for them, if they want to join, if they don't, if, just anything that
Well,
comes to mind.
it's one of these kind of things where it's always an individual and very personal decision. Unfortunately, most of the things you hear about the military are negative because that's what the news media puts it as. Um, I gained a lot of valuable experience being in the military, and I'm thinking that people who you don't want to go to college. If you do want to go to college, get into the officer corps, the ROTC things. The military, for the most part, 95% is good. There's been an ongoing issue with a lot of the female military people. That's being corrected, and hopefully by the time it's individuals who are female who want to go into the military, that will be corrected. But it's an experience that you can't deny as a positive one. But it does have its downfalls. If you get involved in the military, you're going to more than likely go someplace where they're going to be shooting at you, or going to be, bombs being dropped on you. There's all that kind of stuff. But there are a number of individuals who join the military. They never see any kind of live action or combat. So it all depends on what you're going to be doing, what kind of expertise you're going to have, what you want to do. And you spend 20 years in the military and you get yourself a decent paycheck, and then you go off and do almost anything you want to do, because people in the military are highly trained and highly qualified. They're sought after by the civilian environment on a major level. So it's, like I said, it's an individual commitment you make. You can do anything from 2 years to 6 years, first round or out. It's something to consider. If you know anybody that they wanted a little more further information, you can always have them contact me. I'll be more than willing to help to talk to them about it, and go into some more details and get together maybe with some other military people that can give some more ideas to what their experiences were. Mine were pretty positive. Probably go through some areas where they weren't, but everybody's life has its ups and downs. So,
Yep, most definitely.
Yeah.
Well, I'd like to thank you for sharing with us your experiences. Thank you for the encouraging words for those, even though it is a personal choice or a personal thing to make that decision to go in. And thank you for encouraging those and being real. So, you have anything else, Jamie? I just want to thank you for spending the time with us, and thank you for speaking with us. And it's part of our Native American Heritage Month, and we just want to share this interview and let people know that we do serve. Like I said, I come from a family as well that does, and we are super proud, super vigilant, I would say, and things. So I think that's kind of something that we have in common. So, but I appreciate your time and your great conversation today.
You're quite welcome. Anytime, Jamie. No problem.
All right, Lyle, it was great to see you. We'll catch up some other time again.
Yeah, you owe me lunch.